So good afternoon, everyone, and really welcome to our webinar today. My name is Emma Yang. I'm the Managing Principal and APAC Insurance Lead from Capco. Our discussion topic today is on embedded insurance and the opportunities it creates within the health ecosystems in Asia. We'll be answering questions as we go, so please feel free to type your questions in the chat window anytime. And during the session, we'll also be answering some of the pre-collected questions from the registration. This will be the first of a series of discussions on embedded insurance and health ecosystems. And also as a next step, we'll be also organizing some further roundtable meeting discussions on similar topics. So please do expect follow-up invitations from us after this webinar as well. And also any unanswered question we can tackle in those sessions. So what makes people buy insurance today? What is embedded insurance? How is that going to help with anything we're facing today? We all know that insurance is not a typical product that would interest consumers in their daily life. No one would actually wake up in the morning, first thing to browse on their cell phones, look for the latest insurance offerings or any promotional deals from insurance company. So insurance purchases are often really triggered by consumer life events. And a lot of times we know there's not so pleasant ones. Consumers also today don't generally have the right knowledge of their protection needs. Neither are they well informed of the available insurance products from the market. This is actually evidenced through a recent Capco survey that was done for about 5,000 consumers in Asia, where we learned that close to half of the respondents felt they don't know what are the relevant products from the market that are available to them, or what are the products that are relevant for their needs. So what is embedded insurance and how will embedded insurance solve any of these problems we face today from a consumer's end? So embedded insurance, I think, is not actually a new concept. A lot of you sitting here today, you've heard about bank insurance, where we have our travel insurance covers through our credit cards, or we can buy home insurance through mortgage offerings. It's about embedding insurance solutions into the customer's daily life, presenting them with tailored protections that are relevant to them at the point of needs. But what makes it so different today and why we're talking about embedding insurance, even though it's not a new concept, it's really driven by society's growing reliance on technology and data. Customers' expectations, customer needs are evolving. For example, we know all the consumers today are demanding quicker and more convenient access to simple and personalized offerings. So the future of insurance is really about responding to changing customer behaviors based on real-time transaction data. So the embedded insurance strategy needs to be redefined in this context. For the next 90 minutes, we'll be discussing the opportunities embedded insurance brings to the health ecosystems in Asia. And joining us today, we have 5 panel members from Hong Kong and Singapore. First up, we have Aaron Jones, who is the APAC head for analytics from Cigna International Markets.
Hello, thanks for having me.
We have Michael Spiteri, who is Global Head for Insurance Transformation and Innovation from HSBC.
Hi, Emma. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here.
Next one is Mukul Dasgupta from Coherent Group, Chief Platform Officer.
Hello, everyone. Good day.
And next we have Thomas Chang, who is an insurance sector lead from Google Cloud in Hong Kong.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here.
And last but not least, we have Wendy Bao, who is APAC Strategy and Innovation Lead from Roche Diagnostics.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon.
So welcome, everyone. I will start from Michael. Michael, we have all seen the recent headlines of HSBC's acquisition of AXA in Singapore. So we know HSBC is definitely expanding its health insurance business across the region. So Michael, what is your view of Asia's health insurance industry today? What is the state of industry now, and what's ahead in the future, especially after the COVID recovery?
Yeah, thanks, Emma, and thanks everyone for joining the conversation. Hopefully, we can get through the questions and make it interactive. We're interested to hear what people in the audience think as well. So, first of all, I would talk about and think about the idea that we're in the middle of a transformation that I think is particularly important given, like you say, the post-COVID situation and what's happening in the world. I think we're seeing a shift away from a traditional product view into a much more customer-centric view and a customer-driven view across everything that we do. And I think we see that across three domains. I think we see that across what we're doing in terms of the business architectures and the business approach to solving the customer problems, the same with technology and the same with data. And I think if we bring those three areas together, we'll see a fundamental shift and a move away from what is in many insurance companies still a fairly traditional approach to, product design, the supporting kind of actuarial and underwriting performance with the product, etc. So I think we're seeing a shift away from traditional product to a much more customer-focused view. I also think that we'll see an acceleration as a result of that. We'll see an acceleration away from reactive or at best proactive solutions to customer needs to being predictive. And that movement towards being predictive will be based on a much deeper and better understanding of customers, their lifestyles, what's important to them, what the key life events are for them, at various stages in their lives. And I think sitting behind that is the idea that we'll see an engagement around shared value and shared outcomes for customers. And as insurers, I think we have to do a better job in doing all of that. And I think that we'll see that come to fruition much more quickly as we build partnerships with people if we take a health insurance context, Emma, right? In a health context, as we see those partnerships develop, focused around customer needs to accelerate things going forward. So those are the big shifts I see coming in the next few years. Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. So I absolutely agree with you. There's a need of transformation from traditional insurance product to customer outcome focused mindset, which is actually really critical as we start our digital journey, especially post-COVID. Can you also share with us some of the industry challenges, hurdles that you have come across or foresee in the future?
Yeah, I mean, the first challenge is a universal challenge. It's not just relevant to the topic today, embedded insurance, it's execution challenge, right? The ability to take an idea from a whiteboard or some PowerPoint and actually manifest it in real customer experience and in real customer outcomes and propositions is the biggest challenge I think we all face. And I look forward to my colleagues on this call maybe sharing some perspectives on that as well. But so number one would be execution challenge. The winners will be the people who can see something, generate their own ideas or see even other ideas and get them to market faster. So that's number one. Number two is, I spoke about that previously, the partnership challenge. So the ability for partnerships and ecosystems to identify where does the customer value lie? How might that customer value be shared in an ecosystem, in a partnership context? And who gets what in that conversation, but critically not forgetting about the customer. Because I think it's easy in some of these conversations from my past, thinking about partnerships and ecosystems, about you lose sight of the customer. So that's fundamental. I think following on behind that is the idea of trust in data. So data is going to be used in a much more customer-focused way going forward, but that will only play out the way we hope it will play out, is if the way the data is used and who owns the data and the customer's data remains the customer's data is done in a trusted way, and that customers believe that it's being done with their best interests at heart. So trust and data are super important as well. And then I think the final point I'd make is the ability for us, on the panel today and hopefully for the audience to understand that we're going through a societal shift at the moment. We're seeing a fundamental shift in what used to be norms and behaviors, and those expectations that come with that will accelerate, in whatever a post-COVID world looks like, and whichever way it manifests. I think we're going to see a very different set of behaviors and expectations behind it. So those are the big challenges as I see them, Emma.
No, absolutely, Michael. I think you mentioned trust data. We'll talk a lot more about that in our later session of the seminar as well. You talked about partnership challenges. Where's the value, who gets what, and end of the day, we should not forget about our customers. I think insurance and partners both need to really put customers at the center and of every single activity and really better understand their needs. In this specific case, it's about health needs. So speaking of partners, I guess my next question is for you, Wendy. Roche is the world's largest biotech company, and I know you guys have both the pharmaceutical and diagnostic divisions. First off, we're really excited to have you here today representing our ecosystem partner player from outside of the traditional insurance world. So Wendy, could you share with us some of the current medical trends that you see from the biotech industry?
Sure. Thanks, Emma, and thanks for having me. I think I'll share in terms of healthcare trends, both from a maybe pre-COVID world. I know it feels like it was a long time ago, but then these trends will most likely stay post-COVID, and then also some of the trends that were triggered because of COVID. So before even COVID took place, and then we look at our overall healthcare continuum, from people who are healthy to people who are quite sick and require care and treatment. Traditionally, a lot of spending innovation has been very much focused on the sick care part of the health continuum. Now we know that with the rising of aging population, chronic disease, as well as overall healthcare spend, that traditional sick care infrastructure is just no longer sustainable. So as a result, as an industry, we have seen a shift in a recognized need to shift the healthcare continuum in terms of spend and innovation from sick care to healthcare, moving that to the to upstream of the overall healthcare continuum. However, we do recognize that they are still unknowns, and we still need to figure out what are the right incentives for the healthcare system, as well as patients and consumers alike, to action such shift from reactive to proactive and eventually to predictive. Now, in terms of COVID, I think COVID has really further challenged our current healthcare infrastructure, really pushing it to its limit. And we as an industry has been forced to accelerate innovation. Just looking from the Roche context, for us as a diagnostics provider, typically it takes us years to develop, manufacture, and roll out a new test. But for COVID, in order to respond to the pandemic, we had to accelerate that and essentially churn out new tests in a span of short few months. Now, because of COVID, we also have been faced with unprecedented challenges around healthcare. Then that actually provided a great environment to introduce non-traditional players to come and collectively to solve these challenges. So we are seeing many of those non-traditional players in the current healthcare system. Now, some of the trends that were triggered by COVID, we do see a higher awareness of health, understanding the importance of testing. We do also see the adoption of telemedicine and digital health in general, and that is something definitely that's going to stay. And then we do also see the need for convenient health, essentially taking healthcare outside your traditional hospitals and or clinics. Similarly to what Michael mentioned earlier, in that customer focus, we do see during this COVID period, we do see an increased patient-focused approach within the industry. And the last aspect I'd like to highlight is that we do see the element around sustainability, specifically around sustainable financing. This has emerged as a key topic across the world, in fact, as governments are redesigning the healthcare system in the aftermath of COVID. Now, this sustainable funding challenge I see is more pronounced in some of the low medium income countries in our region here, whereby the overall healthcare infrastructure is probably underdeveloped with limited healthcare spend and budget. And this is an opportunity that I actually see that insurance industry, coupled with the right technology, whether it be telemedicine, whether it be digital therapeutics, digital delivery, as well as artificial intelligence, intelligence working together to develop and co-create innovative solutions that could potentially either leapfrog and enable sustainable healthcare in these emerging markets.
Thank you, Wendy, for the insights. You talked about it, there's recognize a need to shift from innovation from sick care to healthcare prevention. I think we've seen that a lot in the insurance industry as well, called a shift to the left, really to move from post kind of after things happening recovery mode into a preventative mode. And one way to achieve this really is through access to better data and analytics capabilities. We know today's digital economy, with rising digital economy, especially in Asia today, more and more insurance consumers are moving online, and that really creates a lot more volume data through all the digital interactions. It's the volume data becoming available exponentially, especially in the unstructured data space with adoption of customer self-service. We all use chatbot, hotspot a lot of times when we deal with e-commerce. So really through all the digital interaction channels, there's voice recording, picture, text, emails, everything become the data that's available to us. So how should insurers take advantage of the data captured? In this sense, I'm talking about both structured and unstructured data to benefit from, to benefit both partners and end consumers, like what you mentioned earlier, Wendy. So Aaron, as an APAC lead for analytics, I know you have been working very extensively in this area. Why do you think it's really critical for insurance companies to be data-driven organizations?
Yeah, thanks, Emma, and welcome everyone. Yeah, really, I think data-driven is ultimately about doing more and creating value for Cigna, our customers, as well as our partners, right? And the key to data-driven is essentially making decisions based off the data, and ultimately, as Michael mentioned, executing based on the insights and the analytics. So that's not easy, but critical to the success of actually driving value for our partners and our customers. And then at Cigna, our key themes are really around making healthcare affordable, predictable, and simple. And really, we can't do any of those things without data. So I'll give you an example on affordability, actually two examples. So the key things where we think of affordability is around essentially managing claims costs and then also having an internal sort of appropriate cost structure. But on the claims cost, there's a few things that really data can really help drive. One is around working with providers and doctors and having meaningful conversations with them to ultimately get the best sort of arrangement for our customers. So that really is key, and really having data as the backbone of those conversations is essentially key to kind of driving that value for our customers. Second is around our clinical program. So working with our doctors and nurses, and we talked about being predictive. We're ultimately looking to have programs that are really focused on finding the right people and guiding them through their care pathways. So really need to have data to drive that. And so really think that data is essential to really our ethos in terms of making healthcare affordable, predictable, and simple.
Thank you, Aaron. So absolutely, for insurance companies, it's really critical to build and manage data assets and develop distinctive analytics capabilities to really enable them to transfer raw data into value-added insights for both partners and consumers. So we talked about partners. Partnerships are obviously very important on this journey. So where do you think are some of the opportunities for insurance companies to work together with ecosystem partners on this data journey?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, basically, we as Cigna, we can't do everything on our own, and recognize that partnerships make our offerings better and help us do more for our customers. Really, partners help us in a few ways. One is to accelerate the pace of innovation that creates mutual value for ourselves and our partners. And then thirdly, helps us expand, who we can address and the services that we can provide to the markets. We have a few examples where we're really working with partners. This is around virtual care, wellness activities, and specialized clinical pathways that we're setting up in certain markets. But one key item, I think, in terms of success for the partnerships is around when consented and when valuable for the customers is that ability to share data, right? So if we can give an example, as I talked about earlier, we have these care pathways, we have doctors and nurses reaching out to folks to try to help navigate them, help them get to appropriate care. And as we work with partners, that data sharing can help make that experience even better for our customers and for our members. So we are trying to add value to our members and believe that partnerships can really, really help us there. And then I guess the other one, sort of given we've got technical players on the call, I think there's really opportunity with our technical partners such as Google and Coherent to think about how partners can help us accelerate our capabilities, right? Things of automating, getting the necessary data that we have without blowing up cost structures. So, technical partners really can help us in that way as well.
Thank you, Aaron. You mentioned about Google. So my next question actually for Thomas. So Thomas, welcome to join our webinar today from Google Cloud. I know you're the insurance lead for Google Cloud in Hong Kong. You really, mainly your clients are from the insurance industry. You really work with a lot of insurance companies across the technology space. The question I have for you, I think would be interested to most of our audience here today is on the data sharing. We talked a lot about offering consumers with affordable and personalized products through the use of big data and analytics, AI. But are consumers really willing to share their data? Like, how do you deal with their privacy concern? I'm putting myself into the consumer's shoes. I'll be concerned in terms of what data you're taking from me and how are you going to use my data for what purposes? So Google has been really at the forefront for using data for building compelling product and service offering, right? Like we're all using Google search on a daily basis. Really, we're all benefiting from that on a day-to-day basis. We cannot live without Google search. So what has been Google's journey working with consumers? Would you be able to share with some insights from that front?
Yes, exactly. So first of all, thank you to being here. And thank you for your question, Emma. I think I would like to share in two parts. One, Google definitely is a data company. And every day, data makes our service and our work better for all of you, right? So that's why it is very important that we keep it private and safe and put you in control. So during this journey on data privacy and security, I would like to share something for consumer about how Google we have done. For example, each of your Google account, for example, Gmail account, you can turn it on or off and control your account and any data that's saved to the account, right? So you can delete any search or browsing or watch or any watched records in your account at any time. And for Android device, Google Pay protect over 100 billion apps every day. So we are scanning it. And for the Gmail, I think we are always blocking all those vulnerability email over 100 million every day. So furthermore, all the transaction between different data in different platform, which is encrypted by default. So you can see that the whole from application layer, from the consumer interface application layer, of course, at the back end from Google Cloud infrastructure layer, we are all protected the data in 24/7. So I just keep it in short. Data privacy and securities must be the first step you need to consider before thinking of sharing the data. I think this part I would like to share how Google as a reference for all the market ecosystem player should be focusing on. And the second part I would like to share is how Google working with our consumer, right? For Google, we build up the foundation of the platform, which is fully manageable, scalable, affordable, and meets all the local compliance requirements. I think that is most important, that we always focusing on meeting all those regulation requirements for the data assets, right? You can search, or you can try to search Google Cloud. We are already leverage our capability to offer a new platform called Healthcare API, which is already launched in US region. And this platform is just like a exchange for healthcare organization, just like clinic, hospital. They are more easily to manage their patients' information with a innovative way, with all those scalability technology embedded, so that our partner, the ecosystem player, can generate more insights to provide the improvement of the care delivery, and also enable the efficiency between your patient and the doctor, right? So from the patient point of view, Google continuously to revision the new ways to communicate with the healthcare provider and automated the routine interactions, just like reviewing the subscription or reporting the diagnostic report, and some of the information just like blood sugar level or blood pressure reading. All those information can be interadded based on this healthcare fundamental standardized recognized platform for different players. So for the next step, the API platform should be the key to help for enterprise, whatever insurer or the ecosystem partner, to build their new business stream. I think that is something Google enable the innovation service, which is providing the better personalized consumer experience in the market. So that is the sharing regardless to your two questions.
Thank you, Thomas. Consumer data are definitely transforming the business, and companies are responsible for managing the data. Actually, in this case, it's not just an insurance company, all the companies. Earlier on, Michael, also you mentioned about the data and the trust issue. Consumer trust level actually are generally pretty low for the insurance industry that we know. What are some of the learning points, Thomas, from your, I guess, your experience working outside of insurance as well as inside insurance? Anything you can share learning points with our insurers here today? Okay,
sure. I think for insurer in the market right now, from my point of view, I suggest me to first step, they need to define here their digital ecosystem journey by 3 major strategies, right? So for the first strategies, building up their own API platform as a core engine, because I think API is the interface to link up whatever your existing internal business needs, and also your external partnership with different various industry partners. And this is the bridge to between your external partner to enable the innovation of the business model. And for example, you can imagine the traditional insurer can working with some innovative offer, including with the transportation industry or the retail industry, which is not just limited to a personalized traditional product model. And the second strategy that clearly well-defined and set it up your own unified data platform. As I understand that most of the traditional insurer in the market, they are separated different business units and own different data set from different purpose. But how they can unleash the data value and building up the end customer personalization journey, I think that is the second key step to build up a unified data platform. And the final step, partnership should be the key, right? The partnership with different type of industry market player to explore and to connecting more unstructured data. Maybe you can think about Google is one of your partner in marketing, but you can think about different type of BU of Google can be connecting different type of unstructured data, just like well-being data from our Fitbit, right? So this kind of example, you can enrich your current data assets from the traditional existing platform, your CRM platform, and moreover, you can take the next action to bring the extra insight on your new business team. So I think that is few steps, few strategy that from my learning point to share the to share for the insurance. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. So I guess from an insurer's perspective, consumers need more affordable and personalized insurance products can be achieved through a smarter use of data analytics, like what Aaron mentioned earlier, and also yourself just kind of briefed, especially I think the point around unstructured data with the digital journey of the creation of the large volume of unstructured data. How do we deal with that to make sure we can derive customer insights from it will be really critical. Just on that point, we did have actually one question received from our audience prior to the webinar, from the kind of registration point, is on, do you foresee any potential pushbacks from customers on extensive use of their personal data to create personalized offerings? Any downside implications to this? Michael, what's your view on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are, taking the question head on, I think there are downsides if you don't get three things right. So the first thing that I think we all need to understand is when we're using lifestyle data to make better decisions, as I said, and I'll come back, I'll talk later on about something we call shared value, Emma, but when we're using customer data for lifestyle type analysis, number one, we recognize and make it clear that it's the customer's data and remains the customer data. I think that's fundamental. Number two, we demonstrate, not through words, but through actions, that we've got the customer's interests at heart. So we approach them, we engage with them on products that we think are fit for purpose and fit for their point in their lifestyle, in their life journey rather, or their lifestyle as well, of course. And the third point is that it's welcome. So when Wendy was talking about nudging before, nudging is a fundamental enabler in a digital context, and it has been for the last 4, 5, 6 years. I'm trying to think of the book, the yellow cover, I can see it about nudging a few years ago. However, nudging can very quickly become the creep factor, where it can feel like it's surveillance that's happening, and then it's not welcome. So we need to get, number one, recognize it's the customer's data. Number two, act with their interests in mind. And number three, engage with them on things that are personal and relevant to them, not that are, either creepy or, and we're nudging and encouraging the right behaviors, to Wendy's point. I think if we get those three things right, then I think we'll move forward significantly. Get them wrong, and any of us on this panel and any of us on this call would reject it, right? If those things weren't true. So that's how I'd answer the question, yeah.
Thank you, Michael, well said. I think another point from my experience, I think it's about transparency as well. Is customers should know when and why their data are being collected and what it's used for and what they get in return. I think having that transparent communication between corporate organization, insurers in this case, with consumers is very critical as well. Give that peace of mind.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, that's the fundamental nature of GDPR, right? That when we ask for data, we make it clear to people why we're asking for the data and how we use the data, including things like right to be forgotten and others. Great point, Emma. Yeah, absolutely.
So we talked quite a bit about data. We have seen the adoption of data and AI capabilities across the value chain, actually, from distribution, product underwriting to claims management. We've seen actually a lot of use of data to enhance the personal lines automation processes, from straight through underwriting to claim triage, fraud analytics, etc. I guess we cannot do any of this without data, but data quality is also very critical. And from my past experience as a consultant for many years, I know a lot of insurers are actually suffering from this end, really due to legacy technologies and due to manual processes in place. Data captured, or generally a lot of times it's incomplete and inaccurate. So insurers end up sitting on a lot of data. The volume is there, data is there, but they are not usable. So Maku, actually, just on that point from technology perspective, you're the Chief Platform Officer from Coherent. And in your view, what are some of the technical challenges insurers are facing today, and what solutions can insurtech industry offer to support?
Thank you, Emma. There has been so many things that we've discussed today. There's a lot to unpack, but I'll try and focus on a few key things around the challenges, right? So I think fundamentally, if we really think about a common thread between what everybody is talking about and what everybody is aspiring towards, it's essentially around business agility. I think we all recognize that the days of when a few small group of people would sit down, envision the future and say, this is what the future is going to be, and then take years to build it out, no longer exists, although we continue to develop things that way, right? And I think Wendy's point about how quickly COVID tests were developed in months when there was an impetus versus years and years of the normal thing is a really good example of where we need that business agility to respond not just to global pandemic challenges, but to simple customer requests, right? And we don't have that today. But let's look at sort of some of the reasons why we don't have that and how we can kind of overcome it. One of the biggest challenges with insurance companies is that they were too early adopters of technology. So it's almost what's happened is the way they adopted technology, things are so tightly integrated all the way from the front to back that everything is hard coded and it's very, very difficult to iterate. So one of the biggest things that insurance companies are in the process of trying to figure out how to do is how do you migrate from some of the more legacy technology architectures to the modern technology architectures that companies like Google and all the other digital natives are using. And I'd say that's probably the first problem to tackle. And this problem relates to two things that Thomas recommended in his path, which is number one, to become API enabled. Oftentimes insurance companies will say, oh, we are API enabled, but all they've done is taken the same architectural designs and put an API on top, but the tight integration is still there, which makes it almost impossible for them to actually work with any other partner, even internally or externally. For instance, most insurance companies will have multiple policy admin systems for different products. They can't even talk to their own products internally because they're so tightly vertically integrated. So the first step really is to figure out how do you migrate from your existing legacy architecture slowly, gradually, in a responsible way to much more modern technology architectures, such as things that might be based on microservices architectures that are truly real-time APIs versus APIs that give the illusion of real-time. And also the second very important part is around the data. How do you basically create a loosely coupled architecture that allows you to really access data across all of your systems and all of your customer base? And it can be done, and it is being done today. The key question is, how do the insurance companies take that leap? Coherent has platforms for policy management systems that can give you a very slow, gradual, low-cost way to get there. You don't need to spend millions and millions on day one. You can take it step by step by step. And that's really the type of transition that a lot of digital native companies do. You're not looking to set up a really big server farm. You're literally buying a few terabytes of data from Google Cloud Platform, and you're up and running and you're experimenting. So I think that's probably one of the first and most important things, is starting to move away from legacy architecture slowly but surely to more modern architectures. The other benefit that this will provide you, besides just enabling partnerships, which has been a key theme, and also enabling you to leverage the power of data, is costs and affordability. We all know that none of this is realistically possible with current cost structures. If you look at cost structures outside of what insurance companies play out in claims, which definitely is the number one reason insurance companies exist, is to take care of people when things go bad. But if you eliminate that, 20 to 30% of an insurance company's cost is all related to IT, and another 20 to 30% is related to operations. I feel quite confident in saying that most other digital native companies don't have that type of a cost structure. And if you start using the right technology stacks, you can do that as well. So if you're using, you can reduce right off the bat anywhere from 40 to 50% of your cost structure by focusing on automation, focusing on systems that are designed for straight-through processing from day one versus trying to retrofit those things. It gives you a better customer experience, allows you to differentiate yourself, and reduces costs at the same time, which is essentially the trifecta of a better customer experience and lower cost. And if that doesn't delight your customers and improve your NPS, I don't know what will, right? The final thing, which is also very critical, and this is something that Wendy talked about, is how do you provide the right incentives for people to actually start adopting? And this is one of those things where, again, my thesis is no one human being knows. My joke is it took me 4 or 5 people to pick the background for my Zoom virtual thing, and everybody had a different opinion. How are you going to decide that there's one insurance product that works for multiple people? It's all about experimentation, right? I mean, there's a famous study of Google having run experiments to pick the right shade of the blue that goes into their G, right? It wasn't one person that said this is going to be the shade of blue. They ran experiments. So how do you do that in insurance? That's to find the right product market fit. And that's where you have things like no-code platforms that can short circuit all the way from the intellectual property that an actuarial person comes up with to APIs literally in seconds. So Coherent has a no-code platform that can take simple Excel logic and be API ready within seconds, without any of the intermediate things. So these are the ways when you can then take that and literally experiment at scale to figure out for this particular audience on this particular channel, what is working or not. So those are some of the technical challenges. But just to wrap up, I think, and one of the key questions that was asked in the chat, I think by Guillaume, is execution is a challenge, but how do you drive culture change, right? And what I would say is that if you really think about, there's many definitions of culture. But I believe culture is simply an accumulation of successful decisions. And what does successful decisions mean? So when you make decisions that are successful, that becomes culture, because then people go, this is how decisions are made at this company. This is our company culture. That's how you achieve success. Achieving success in today's world is all about how quickly you can experiment and iterate. And if you can experiment and iterate, find the right success, and then show that to everybody else that, hey, we took 6 to 12 months to release one new product, but by using InsurTech platforms out there, not just Coherent, but even several other players, I can go to market, launch a new product within weeks, see if it succeeded or not. The ones that failed, then the next week I tried another different product and tried it out, and this is the one that succeeded. When you do that, that builds a culture of success. Just like I suspect in Roche next year, the new diagnostic test that comes out and somebody says, oh, I need a 3-year roadmap to launch this diagnostic test, they're going to go, hold on, we tackled the COVID tests in 3 months. I don't think we're going to accept 3 years anymore. And honestly, that's what culture changes to me. Thank you. I've got a slightly different interpretation of Guillaume's question, but that's why we're a panel with different perspectives, Mukul. So maybe if we've got time later, I can come back to that, Emma. I'll let you continue.
Yeah, actually, you know what, Michael, I think, why don't you hear your thoughts on that point?
Because I've been through this 2 or 3 times in my career, and you're right about, you know, one impact of culture is demonstrable success. I get that, right? But a fundamental aspect which is implied in Guillaume's question, let me just pop up the question again because I did look at it. Where is it? It's up at the top. Okay, getting the right support from leadership to transform and change their habits is another one. How do you tackle culture change from top to bottom? So actually, I think that's a human experience, Mukul. I think it's about how people feel, not how people think. The thinking and the rational execution of a successful strategy definitely creates a very positive feedback loop, no question. But how people feel about what we're trying to do is fundamental to the creation of a culture that's open, transparent, psychologically safe, where people can speak up. So I would come back to, you know, good old Simon Sinek, and the way that you get that from top to bottom is ask the question, why are we here? What is our purpose? What are we trying to achieve? Why are we interested in this particular transformation from a customer perspective or not? Because the top to bottom bit, and I think it's from the top down, and I think it's from the bottom up. I think we create movements, and cultural transformation really embeds itself when you've got a belief system where you see a movement happening and people want to be part of it. It's not something that you can do to people and people passively receive. They want cultures are ours, we own them. So I think fundamentally stick with the why are we trying to do this? Why do we think it will be good for the customers that we serve? Why do we think it will be good for the organizations that we work in? Why do we think it will be good for the partnerships? And then when you've got that right, there's 3 or 4 things that I've learned in the last 3 or 4 years. The thing we're trying to do, all of us, is hard by definition, right? By definition, when things are hard, it brings humans into conflict with each other. Learning how to engage in a situation where we have different perspectives and points of view, in my experience, is the biggest indicator of a cultural shift. That people can speak up, that they don't have to worry about hierarchies, about how senior someone is or isn't. If there's a voice in the room, and as leaders, if you don't model that, you're destroying the culture that you're trying to create. So if someone talks over the top of someone else based on perceived hierarchy and you let that go in a meeting room, you've missed an opportunity to make a positive intervention in the moment to change culture. So I fundamentally believe that culture is about how people feel, and how you do that is about thinking about why we're trying to achieve the thing we're trying to achieve. Sorry, Emma, that was a little bit of a soapbox moment for me.
No problem, Michael. I agree with everything you said. And actually, I really like the point on that culture discussion. We went a bit more than what we planned in here. But no, absolutely. It's a good point. I think culture is very important, actually, really from insurance point of view, right? Insurance is such an old-fashioned industry. We spend a lot of time doing planning work. We try to look for the next big waves, what are new products we can offer to the market to catch the trends from the market. But I really like, Miku, actually the point you mentioned about business agility, right? It's about experimenting. It's a lot of time, it's not about takes like years to plan, and then something you launch the market is already out of fashion, and it's outdated. What we should do is having that agility in the business to be able to make a confident decision, just to try things, to see if things work out or not. And then we have that agile way of working. That culture is very, very important. I think from our insurance perspective, probably across our financial services industry, it's something we need to adapt. It's really just the world is changing so fast. You can never know what's going to happen next. There's a COVID, who knows what can happen next. So we need to get our employees all prepared for that mentality to be able to really to adapt and make changes with the confidence. And can be through data, can be through technology, but I think that's very, very, very critical. So back to our point. So talking about data tech, talking about technology. So I think actually maybe a bit to share from my end as well is InsurTech is really booming. Like for the past 12 months as a consultant, again, I've seen a lot more partnerships that's from consulting end is building with InsurTechs in the industry more so than ever. So I think it's really insurers are more actively looking for new solutions in the market to help them to accelerate their capabilities to improve the quality and speed to market at cheaper costs instead of building everything themselves. I think this is also a point that Aaron mentioned earlier as well, is about building solutions by yourself may not always be the best approach at times. So we should also focus on building the right partnerships. So I guess the next big question is really for everyone's, how can all the players work together within this ecosystem to achieve greater synergy and reduce the policy cost? Essentially is for the end consumer to be able to benefit. Maybe Wendy, going back to you from Roche's perspective, what are some of your current challenges and how do you think companies like Roche can work together with insurance companies to manage these challenges you both face?
Great, thanks. I love how we were saying that insurance industry is big and pretty risk averse. And if I look at the healthcare industry, we're also not the fastest on the block in terms of speed of innovation, right? So I think this is where the two giants need to learn how to adapt in the new environment. So kind of back to some of the earlier themes and discussions in terms of what are some of the opportunities that we could potentially explore and experiment, to Maku's point earlier, right? We talked about a need, a recognized need to shift from sick care to healthcare. We talked about, mindset, nudges and whatnot. Then there's another key element, which is around budgeting. Now, as looking at healthcare spend as a whole, approximately 1 to 5% is spent on preventative measures compared to actual sick care. So I think this is where insurance companies and healthcare industry could probably have a shared responsibility to see how do we increase the awareness of the importance of preventative care, as well as, at those right moments to trigger that into meaningful action with the relevant insurance products. So I'll just give a couple examples in this area. So first is around cervical cancer, which is one of the leading cancer amongst women in Asia Pacific. In fact, top 5 in terms of incidence and mortality rate. Now, cervical cancer, unlike any other cancer type, is a very well understood and studied disease. In fact, 99% of cervical cancer is caused by HPV infection. Now, through early and routine screening of HPV, coupled with the right management before disease progression, in fact, no woman around the world should die from cervical cancer. Now, many developed countries in this region, as well as across the globe, already have these type of HPV screening program in their national health coverage. But many, many more, especially in this region, do not have that. So we really see this as an opportunity whereby we could join forces, not only to increase awareness of such preventable cancer. I mean, think about it. Think about the health spend that could be saved downstream, but also with Roche's deep domain knowledge in this area, we feel that this is an area we could potentially explore. How might we co-create the right and potential niche insurance coverage to overcome these barriers and truly make an impact together? And then if we were to continue on the women's health journey, and let's take a look at pregnancy care, right? Currently, when a woman suspects that she is pregnant, she goes to the doctor and confirms her pregnancy status. At this point, she is probably overjoyed and overwhelmed with different emotions. But for many of those who may not have the right health coverage for pregnancy care, they could be absolutely at a loss. I think this is where, Google is extremely powerful as a search engine. You type in healthcare, pregnancy care insurance, probably hundreds of products and solutions will pop up. Now, the challenge for women in this case is that this is really difficult to navigate. It's really difficult for them to understand what is the right solution for me, and then select the right one, and one that they can really trust. So wouldn't it be great if the right insurance solution coverage based on this woman's health condition, age stratification, a lifestyle is actually presented by a trusted source at the moment of her pregnancy confirmation? So I think there are these areas that we could definitely explore and experiment together. And of course, both of these engagements, right, could also be a starting point for a more woman-centric coverage program based on relevant data, tailored to different age groups along different patient journeys and pathways. Because we do know that depending on the disease, the journey and the needs are very unique. So this is where, with our experience in both diagnostics as well as pharmaceuticals, Roche could be a key partner here to creating the relevant insurance policies with our expertise, not only in prevention, but also in mitigation interventions along the different pathways. So we also know that women make up about 80% of household health decisions. So they're a really key, important stakeholder, and we are really keen to experiment in this area. But I also like to take maybe just a minute or two to shift the gear a bit and make a couple comments on data. And then we talked about data quite a bit. And as Roche, as a company, we actually also have been investing pretty heavily around digitalization of healthcare, also in creating meaningful data and insights at scale. We see this value essentially by aggregating and anonymizing patient data to enable and accelerate medical research and development, at the same time, improve patient care and outcome. Now, on this panel, we're already here, and outside this panel, we see many ecosystem players that are trying to crack this nut around how to make data more secure, safe, and accessible. I actually believe, I think this is a great starting point, that we can do this more effectively if we kind of pull our efforts together. And because I really do believe we each bring potentially a different piece of the puzzle. And by working together, we could, define what kind of data that's needed, what is the source we need to go to capture it, what are the standards that are required, but more importantly, which I also saw a note in the Q&A, is we can do together to help shape policy and regulation, because that will definitely enable trust around health data. So perhaps we might have to take an infinite game mindset and approach to truly unlock this opportunity together.
I do love that point, because I think waiting for a regulator, and you think about, what we've done across financial services over the last 5 or 6 years, everything from, just moving platforms to the cloud, private cloud, public cloud, getting in front of the conversation and shaping the regulation rather than waiting for the regulator or the policymakers to come at it is bang on, Wendy. I couldn't agree more with you there. Yeah.
Thank you, Wendy and Michael. I'm just browsing some of the questions we have from the audience. Maybe one could be really relevant is, what are the panel's thoughts on a market like India, where it's a low penetration, huge population, huge potential in the market, but the per capita income very low? Actually, that does not just apply to India, Thailand, Vietnam, a lot of the developing countries in Asia, where customers very focused on pricing and values. What's everyone's thoughts in terms of in the developing markets like that?
If I could maybe take a punt at it and then let the others comment. So I think that one of the things that we're focusing on at the moment is this concept of shared value, right? In the sense that what we're at, and also education and awareness, picking up on Wendy's point. So if you look at not just India, but you look at other markets as well that may not be particularly well served, either in terms of, health cover or protection or whatever it is. Number one is raising the awareness. So with healthcare and health insurance in mind, what we are developing is a model that, by increasing awareness, by making more people healthier, the customer wins because they live a better, longer life, hopefully, right? Notwithstanding things like genetics, disorders, etc. But we all know that there's, and I couldn't agree more with you, Wendy, around the causality between lifestyle and the 4 primary kind of disease aspects of respiratory health, respiratory disease, diabetes, cancer, and heart disease, right? Those account for around 70% of the global health problems. So if we get the awareness right and we get the shared value model right, so one of the things that we're very clear on is we will not disadvantage people from a pricing perspective, but we will use the shared value model to create a better set of customer outcomes. And if we get it right in terms of underwriting and pricing, we believe that will create a better outcome for the company as well. And I do think there's a virtuous circle piece here, that if you get that right and you get that flowing right, you'll be able to serve markets at a different price point and start that cycle much earlier. And obviously India would be a market that would be appropriate for that. So those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear from the panel or from people listening.
Yeah, this is Aaron. So a couple of thoughts that come to my mind are, one is still around this affordability piece, but this is where I also think flexibility matters. So as the sort of your product sizes may have to differ or may have to change, so how you can be nimble, to Mukul's point, to sort of have different types of products and experiment, I think is going to be really essential as you're sort of trying to go to a broader, more diverse set of, population. So those are things that come to my mind, is how do you be flexible and nimble enough to have products that can serve the uniqueness of a certain population. So sort of things that come to my mind.
And that point about, you know, experimentation, Michael, you were talking about it from a technology perspective, which I understand. I'm a big passionate believer in design thinking, and particularly in a new market. You know, we come with a particular developed a set of ideas that may or may not resonate in that market, may or may not engage the people that we're trying to, you know, bring up that awareness curve. So for heaven's sake, before we build stuff, let's prototype stuff and test it, right? I think that's so fundamental.
And Michael, I think the key point was, if you think about how do you drive affordability, right, to what we're talking about here for any market, yes, you've got to take design thinking, all of those disciplines, but in order to do it at scale in a very affordable way, you need to be smarter about how you use technology
100%
to drive those costs down, right?
Yeah.
So how you develop fundamental frameworks for testing and enable that through technology, you know. And one very simple example is when most people hopefully on this call are familiar with the term UAT, user acceptance testing. Let's not even talk about the basic stuff, but most insurance companies will spend weeks of tens of 20s of people doing user acceptance testing. But all you're doing is saying, this was the input, male, 40 years old, smoker. What is the price? Oh, okay, if I enter those things, I might change the price. And we have armies of human beings. Thomas, I'll speak on your behalf. I guarantee you nobody at Google is doing testing that way, because you don't have to. There's a very, very simple technological platform. And so things like that, other tech platforms, including Coherent, we've built that into the platform so that you're not spending probably tens of thousands of total dollars in UAT and weeks. You've got that for basically zero marginal cost, and you're able to take that out of your cost to serve right then and there, just by using the right tooling. Some of these tools are even open source for that matter. Heck, you don't have to use ours. You can use free open source tools to do that too, right?
Yeah, I think that's bang on. But I think when you've got a unified platform, that's great. That makes that job much easier. Most of us on the call live in highly heterogeneous environments. And you're right about, by the way, it's still about 30% of the overall development effort, right? Which is just bonkers when you think 30% of every $10 you spend is, you know, $3.33 are spent on testing. But this is not an excuse, because we should get better at it, Michael, completely. But a lot of it is checking the flow of data through a highly heterogeneous environment and making sure that that's coming back with the right information. It's non-trivial, but I do agree, absolutely. I'd love to, if you can find a way of taking out how much money we spend on testing, we're all ears. Yeah.
Actually, I think I just remind me that relates to, you know, the rise of micro insurance. We see so much in Southeast Asia countries. It's really rising this year. It's to enable that, back to Aaron's point, right? Like flexibility, modularized products, building the product to fit the needs of the customers. And, you know, everything's enabled through data, through technology. So let me go back to maybe back to Google, to Thomas. So you also mentioned earlier that insurance companies could partner with different market players from distribution perspective, but also I think we talked quite a bit just beside distribution, sales, across the insurance value chain. There's a lot of partnership we can develop. How can tech cloud providers such as Google to help bridge the gap and bring all the ecosystem players onto one infrastructure?
Yes, I think that's a good question. And this question, I think just some related to some of the FAQ related in the chat room. For the one infrastructure, I think this concept should be from a tech and cloud provider point of view. I think we are standing in a lateral and open mind position rather than a embedded platform provider in this positioning. Because I'll just give you some reference for Google. We have different type of business unit, right? I think you guys daily using Macs, Google advertisement, Android device, Google Cloud in the back end, maybe Fitbit, maybe Google Pay, right? So, but for all of our business unit, our main DNA of our whole organization is open. So what is the meanings of this? Open means that we are willing to share our pioneer of the technology to the market. And we hope the market player, whatever the ecosystem player, to the traditional insurer or enterprise, they can leverage our technology in a minimal spending or the lowest cost in the world to leverage our capability and explore the further opportunities based on data or based on technology, right? I give you one example. I think Fitbit, I think all of you heard that, and they just acquired completely under Google early this year, right? And most of the customers, they are thinking of if they would like to connecting the well-being data from this kind of device, how they can leverage this kind of data. For Fitbit, they are already offering the open API for all the players in the market, wherever our competitor or the rest of the other platform player can directly to connecting the personalized data, the health record. And it is not limited to using Google technology or using Google Cloud infrastructure or using Google application, right? So that is something we would like to build a foundation infrastructure which is helping the ecosystem and the distribution channel to adopt together. And one of the unicorn insurtech firm, they just creating a service called device protection service. They leverage Google API, which is we call APAC, that is the API management platform, with the data analytic capability using Google advertisement and the rest of the unstructured data together and find out the customer insight and some of the protection on their mobility device. So they create a new business stream called mobility digital insurance, right? So I think that is some of the example you can think about traditional healthcare or traditional insurer. It is not just limited to the health, life, something like that. You can explore extensively to the rest of the other industry and related to the personal journey, right? For Google, the main strategy that we are promoting is open source strategy. We don't want whatever our partner or enterprise or the market player, they are locking in with particular technology. So as Coherent mentioned, they are willing to share the tools using open source for the UAT test, right? So that is something I think we are aligned to the market. Google or the market player should be well using this kind of trustable and reliable global platform during this embed the healthcare ecosystem journey. So that is something shared from a tech firm or from a cloud provider point of view.
Thank you, Thomas. I guess a similar question for you as well, Mukund. Now we're talking about technology platform or open source strategy. So early on, you spoke about the technical challenges insurers are facing today. And one main point is on business agility. We talked quite a bit about it, the culture changes, experimental culture is very important. You also mentioned about some possible solutions insurtechs could offer. So understand insurtechs can be an enabler to help an insurance company to help them really accelerate their digital insurance journey. But also, what's your view in terms of for insurtech to plug them into the bigger ecosystem building? What can insurtech contribute to that bigger ecosystem building?
Absolutely. And I think as everyone's been talking, there's a few philosophical things that are coming up, right? One of them is probably around, do we believe that there is just one single organization that is going to be the best at every part of the experience, every part of the delivery mechanism? I think everybody on this panel believes not, otherwise we wouldn't be on a panel, right? And that's just the reality. So, but what you need in order to unleash the collective energy, the collective creativity of thousands of people around the world is some platform across which everybody can focus on that, right? So just take, the problem statement is this: Cigna needs to connect with Roche Diagnostics to bring in the customer and clinician data to provide the right insurance. HSBC needs to do the same thing. Then Cigna has to connect to Google's Fitbit API. Then HSBC does the same thing. Roche does the same thing. This is thousands of people duplicating effort, spending way more money than is necessary, right? That's a problem and a solution that does not scale for anybody, none of the players. There's no value being created, value is being destroyed if we take that approach. And that's been one of the fundamental problems with a lot of these point-to-point, one-to-one partnerships that have historically happened in a lot of players in the industry. So what we are trying to bring to the market as Coherent, as well as other insurtech providers, is how do we build a platform where Cigna connects one time via true microservices real-time APIs, HSBC does, and you've got that shared platform and connected to Google and other open source providers where HSBC can leverage some new automated claims processing engine that one insurtech out in Germany developed that is significantly better, faster, and cheaper at detecting fraud, for example, right? If that's what you want to do. And once you've got that connectivity, you can also build different business models that simplify. So for example, if you're doing an advertisement on Google for life insurance or anything like that, you are not sitting there negotiating on a one by one basis on every website how much HSBC is going to pay every website, right? Google's taken care of that business model and that shared value in a very free market, supply demand based way, right? I'm not trying to say that exact same thing applies everywhere, but the thing is, once you've got a platform where people can communicate seamlessly, where you've got one sort of point of connectivity, you can save costs and also enable business models and sharing of data, sharing of value in a very constructive way, right? So that's really what we want to enable. And you can take a very simple example of, there's a company in Europe, basically a fintech company that by an API called generates a 16-digit Visa number. It's temporary for one-time use only. Think of that as a way that claims payouts are made, and it's so much more efficient. And in fact, this company signed a deal with one of the largest insurance companies in Europe at the group level because they saw the vision. They said, this is going to improve the experience for all of our customers, as opposed to sending something in and doing all that paperwork. I give you a 16-digit Visa, you pay the clinic directly. They spent 9 months integrating with just the France business unit. This was a fintech startup. And then they said, you know what, I can't spend the next 3 years integrating with the other 17 business units across this. I am done. So what we are trying to advocate through working on a unified platform is a build once, use everywhere type of model. And that's really what we need to accelerate the innovation that Aaron was talking about earlier.
Thank you, Makua. Really to summarize here is really what we're hearing today is through everyone's discussions, no one can do it all. And we all believe that ecosystem are going to be a major, or is not, if not already, a major cause to the industry disruption. To wrap up this session, I guess I would really want to invite Michael and Aaron to share a bit more about within your organization, Cigna and HSBC respectively. What are you doing in the ecosystem partnership building space? Maybe starting with yourself, Michael, what are some of the strategic initiatives that HSBC Insurance is taking on? And also, where do you think embedded insurance could be part of your strategy to help unlock the underlying opportunities within the health ecosystem space?
Sure. For those in the audience who don't know, one of our flagship activities at the moment is this health and wellness proposition we're developing. And 1.0 was essentially an earn your Apple Watch, right? So in return for, and it's back to the kind of education and awareness and incentivization, the nudges that Wendy spoke about. So that was 1.0. We're super excited about what we're going to do with 2.0, and 2.0 will be a fully integrated, building on the points that we've heard from everybody on the panel, a fully integrated health and well-being solution that will give you information about your physical health, psychological health, and financial health, right? And that can only happen if we have the platforms in place and the ability to share data across them. So we're really, really excited about our health and wellness work, and that can't be done by ourselves. So the partnerships we have in that, we use Dakadu for the health score as the core engine for the health score, but building on something we've heard already, we augment that data with data that we think is particularly insightful and special to HSBC, right? Trying to build a better relationship with our customers. We couldn't do it if we didn't have GCP, sorry, Google, no TLAs, no three-letter acronyms, and without Google's cloud platform underneath, right? Allowing us to unify data from insurance, from the banking world, all focused on the customer output. So that whole, and the partner, the ability, I love Mukul's story actually, because it resonates, right? Particularly engaging in large group organizations where they go, and they mean it when they say it, we want to be agile, we like what a fintech or an insurtech is doing, come in and help us disrupt our own ecosystem or value chain, and then bit by bit they smother it and crush it, right? Crush the life out of it. I think that, you know, those of us who represent those large organizations, whether they be in healthcare or insurance, have a job to do to make it easier to figure out how we work with those smaller partners. You know, the Googles of the world have figured out how to work with big kind of enterprises. It's the small entrepreneurial firms. So partnership is key to the whole health and wellness proposition. I'd also, I think it's so important that when a couple of examples that we've heard today is we need to get out of this cycle of waiting till we're in a point of distress, right? Whether it's, you know, a pregnant woman or, God forbid, cervical cancer or something like that, or any other event, that's my point about moving away from being reactive to certainly proactive. And ultimately, you can't be predictive with, you know, accidental things, but you could be predictive with planned things like pregnancy or something, right? But you could even be predictive in the areas of some of those major diseases, right? Because to your point, Wendy, we know what the causes are. We understand the causality. We understand the interventions and therapies you can implement to try and drive a different set of outcomes. So this idea of waiting until somebody's in distress, and then when they're in distress, right, Mukul's point about the ability to pay the care provider, you know, the medical care provider, immediately without having to go through all that paperwork. And we know from smart analytics, 7 years ago with an insurer in Canada, we were able to identify, you know, parts of people, particular demographics that were more likely to fraud in motor than not fraud in motor, right? Now, why don't we invert that and turn that into, why don't we create a fantastic experience when you have had an unfortunate event and take that moment of pain and distress and turn it into something of value that's welcomed and reinforces, hey, this insurance company or health provider that I'm working with really are different. They're engaging with me in a different way, and they're thinking about what it's like to be me when I'm feeling a sense of distress. And then the very final point is customer expectations will change. Society's expectations will change. Customer needs will not change. They're the same that we've always had. Okay, you know, the same idea to be part of something bigger, to be cared for, to be loved, to love, to, you know, for people to understand us, to communicate. Those are, and to be protected, those are enduring human values. The way that they're delivered and the way that they're engaged is the fundamental shift in front of us today.
No, absolutely. So, Michael, I really, really agree with you on that point about customer behavior changes, expectation changes, everything changes. But what's not changing is that fundamental core, you know, human values. It's we all need protections. A lot of times we don't really know what we need, but we're eager, we're keen to get to understand what our needs are, and we want to feel protected. We want to have that love. We want to have that protection from insurance companies in this case. I guess, and also your earlier point on not waiting till you're in an emotional stress point is, I guess that really echoes well with this whole thing about embedded insurance strategy. Is about where you have more information. In this case, can be from Wendy's company, from Roche, or from, you know, healthcare providers, where you have customers' data, you understand better with your expertise. You can inform them to let them know what are the risks they're facing, what are their risk profiles, and you can provide the protection needs recommendations accordingly from there, rather than having for them to wait till at the point that they think, okay, this is the point where I need to get some insurance to protect my my future. They don't have to do that. It's about being proactively managed through the party that have more information and knowledge to advise the less informed party, to enable them, empower them to make decisions with confidence through that journey. So back to the point, and also we're talking about partnerships is quite key. And I know from Cigna, you're also having quite a few interesting things going on. So Aaron, anything you can share for some examples from partnership building on Cigna you're working with? And also another question is, from your view, what would make a partnership successful?
Yeah, thanks, Emma. So, I think it kind of goes back, and we'll start with the partnership successful. One is the continuing to drive innovation for our customers and for the partners. And then I'd say mutual value, right? How do we really get value or drive value for basically all components of the ecosystem, right? And so that's really essential in my mind. And so two examples that I wanted to bring up. So one is a recent one, which is a partnership with a company called Pi Health, PAI, in Singapore, which is around really allowing our customers to benefit from tailored individual health plans based on the wearable tech and the data that we're getting, and that Pi is helping us sort of understand and sort of normalize to then drive sort of the individual uniqueness in the health plans that are that we'll be recommending to our members. So that's one I think really powerful, new, recent, but still really I think shows the collaboration and necessary components in terms of data sharing and then bringing value to the members. And then the second one I wanted to bring up, which is a little complicated, but I think really important, is effectively in our Australia market, we've essentially partnered with NIB Group and created a partner, which is called Honeysuckle Health. And Honeysuckle Health is essentially a data science company that's out there to improve outcomes and lower costs. I know that's ambitious, and you hear that a lot, but effectively they're really doing that and sort of working with NIB as their first partner. And they've creating clinical programs and supporting these programs through predictiveness, kind of what Michael talked about, prediction and plan things. So one of their key things, the first program that they are launched, is a hospital support program, which is goaled towards reducing readmissions, and essentially have seen 19% reduction in readmissions, 25% reduction in costs, all with a positive NPS over 60. So has been a really powerful to sort of creating value for both NIB as well as the customers.
Thank you, Aaron. I know we have some unanswered questions, but I'm just conscious of time. We probably have to wrap up the session for today. We do have planned a few follow-up meetings, webinars, and also the one I mentioned earlier is really follow up on the similar topics about health ecosystems within Asia, as well as embedded insurance. So do expect more invitations from us from that side. So really just to wrap up, thank you, Aaron, Michael, Maku, Thomas, and Wendy for sharing all your perspectives and insights today. It's really, really helpful. On some of the heated discussion, I think I really liked how we have different perspectives, but the overview is the same. It's about if I can summarize today's discussion with 3 keywords, I think it's technology, data, and partnerships. As we mentioned at the beginning, right, embedded insurance is not new. It's about redefine what we're talking today. It's about redefining its strategies through a new lens with the enablement of technology and data. As the traditional industry borders fall, and how to harness and power technology and data to deliver that integrated customer experience, jumping from Roche to Cigna, to Coherent, whatever we're talking about, different partnerships in there, to have that integrated customer experience and to have them seamlessly protected. It's a really critical point for every single company. So with the rise of API platform and the generation of data through digital platforms, interactions, we're talking about data, unstructured data, voice data, etc. It really provides a lot of opportunities for insurers and non-insurers really work together in this space and to capture the values that were previously unimagined. But along this journey, we need to make sure to ensure a secured and scalable way to allow data and insights to be shared between parties. And that's why we're talking about the critical point about data sharing and data privacy. So this is the end of the webinar, and thank you everyone for attending today. Do reach out if you have any questions. A link of the recording to today's webinar will also be shared with you after this webinar to your email address. So that's everything for today. Thank you for joining us.